Thank you so much, and thank all of you for joining me here today to discuss this important topic on remote work arrangements, telecommuting, and how to make sure that all of you are in compliance. So, more and more employees are working today from a virtual workplace. And that's either because of the poor economy, it could be due to family responsibilities, it might be as a result of ADA accommodations, or it could be a combination of all of these. However, that decision to allow your employees to work remotely has, as you're going to find out today, many legal implications that we will discuss. In addition, modern technology, as you all know, now makes telecommuting easier than ever. You have emails and smartphones and what we're doing today, webinars and teleconferencing. So today, what I want to do with you is discuss and help you prepare for some of the legal pitfalls that can arise as a result of allowing these alternate virtual workplaces for your employees, including whether you have to provide or should provide a telecommuting arrangement as a reasonable accommodation under the ADA. Issues such as whether you could be subject to discrimination claims if you allow some to telecommute but deny that right to others. And also, how do you go about making the decision to avoid any potential discrimination claims? Also, what do you do about a workplace injury if the employee works remotely from home, and how do you handle that? We're also going to talk about whether remote employees are entitled to FMLA and how that would even work, and also whether or not you need to have a telecommuting policy and or a telecommuting agreement. Now, this whole issue of whether to allow your employees to telecommute or not really recently came into the limelight with major CEO Marissa Mayer from Yahoo, who in February 2013 decided that she was going to stop allowing telecommuting for employees that worked at Yahoo. And she issued an important statement in which she said, quote, "To become the absolute best place to work, communication and collaboration will be important, so we need to be working side by side. That's why it's critical that we are all present in our offices. Some of the best decisions and insights come from hallway and cafeteria discussions, meeting new people, and impromptu team meetings. Speed and quality are often sacrificed when we work from home. We need to be one Yahoo. That starts with physically being together." So that was a bold, brash move after, of course, having years in which employees at Yahoo had been allowed to telecommute. Interestingly, Marissa Mayer, the new Yahoo CEO, took the job as CEO when she herself was 5 months pregnant. And of course, she's been working hard to improve productivity at Yahoo and sort of turn the company around. Whether or not it ultimately will prove to make Yahoo a better company or not clearly remains to be seen. But there are legal risks of telecommuting and, of course, stopping telecommuting, as we're going to discuss today. Now, following in Yahoo's footsteps, another major company, retail giant Best Buy, also made the decision to stop allowing employees to telecommute. Best Buy also just brought in a new CEO who also was focusing on making the company be more efficient and more productive. So one thing is for sure, though, of course, and that is that you really need to, when you are working with these remote work arrangements and telecommuting, you need to have your ducks in a row and prepare for many of the legal issues which you will, of course, need to know about. So to help us out here, I have a friend of mine, Hanna Humanresources. So Hanna has been being pressured by the C-suite bigwigs at your organization to save money for your organization by not having to have an office for some employees and allowing them to work remotely from home. However, when she checks with the legal department, she finds out they have several concerns about her idea. So she signs up for today's webinar. Here is what Hanna, as well as all of you, need to know. So telecommuting has many benefits for an organization, such as reduced overhead. You don't have to have that office for that employee. It can also help you attract more employees, since I guarantee you they're all going to love the idea of not having to face a long commute each day, but the legal perils are also many, as you can see here. So you need to be aware of, could that decision you make on who you're going to allow to telecommute and who you're not going to allow to telecommute subject you to discrimination claims, and how can you limit your liability there and ensure that, that it is done fairly so as to avoid any discrimination claims. Also, we're going to talk about whether or not, as I said earlier, you have to allow telecommuting as a reasonable accommodation under the ADA. Could allowing employees to work from home subject you to Fair Labor Standards Act wage and hour claims? And what do you need to be aware of from that perspective? Also, can employees who are injured at home while they work remotely, are they entitled to workers' comp? How do they report the incident or injury? And what about your OSHA responsibilities? Does your organization have those when an employee works remotely? And of course, we're going to talk about a telecommuting agreement and a telecommuting policy. So I want to start out by discussing the legal pitfalls that can occur when, with regard to that initial decision, who is allowed to telecommute and who cannot. So of course, the decision can be challenged, as can any employment-related decision you make in the workplace. It can be challenged by the employee who you decide is not allowed to telecommute based on claims that your decision was discriminatory. You didn't allow them to telecommute because of their race or their religion or their national origin or their sexual orientation, etc. Almost everyone today is in some sort of a protected class. So there are both federal as well as state employment discrimination laws. Under the federal employment discrimination laws, you are, of course, prohibited from refusing to or making that decision on who can and cannot telecommute based on their sex or race, color, religion, or national origin under Title VII, their age under the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, based on their disability under the ADA and the ADA Amendments Act, based on their military status under USERRA, and based on their genetic information under GINA. Now, as you all know, there are also state and local laws that prohibit discrimination, usually on an even broader range than under federal law. They usually prohibit discrimination based on everything under federal law, and then some. For instance, the New York State Human Rights Law, which you see here, also prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation and marital status. The New Jersey law against discrimination also includes everything, and gender identity, and the DC human rights law includes all of that, plus family responsibilities. That's one of the broadest of the state human rights laws. So even though all of you know that you are, of course, making the decision on who you're going to allow to telecommute and who not based on legitimate job-related factors and not at all based on the individual's protected class, it's important that you have the necessary documentation, of course, to support your decision. That way, if you were ever sued as a result of your decision, you would be best protected. So what will help you protect your organization? Basically, this requires that you have a formal telecommuting policy. This policy is going to set forth the basis upon which an employee either qualifies or does not qualify for telecommuting arrangement. Setting forth that criteria ahead of time and substantiating why this employee does not fall within the stated criteria is a critical step to avoid liability for discrimination when making these decisions. So your policy, your telecommuting policy, should set forth job-related criteria for eligibility for a telecommuting arrangement. I don't care what you use as your eligibility, but it has to be legitimate job-related eligibility information, such as, a minimum amount of years of service with your organization, or the person would have to have performance ratings of a certain level. And then there are also, I'm sure, job duties within your workplace, certain classifications that are well suited to telecommuting arrangements, and some, like if you had an assembly line, which you could never agree to a telecommuting arrangement because someone can't perform their duties working on an assembly line while telecommuting. So all these criteria need to be clearly set forth in your telecommuting policy so your employees understand ahead of time whether they are eligible to telecommute and what the eligibility requirements are. And this will also help support HR's decision as to whether an employee may or may not telecommute. Now, as with any employment law policy that you draft, you should also make sure that when you apply it, you of course apply it equally across the board so that you don't want to allow some employees to telecommute while others can't, based on factors that may appear to be discriminatory or not job related. So what should your policy set forth? The criteria for the eligibility, as I said, minimum amount of years or service, performance ratings at a certain level. The telecommuting policy also needs to state, of course, that in your sole discretion, you can discontinue the employee's ability or right to telecommute at any time. And then, of course, you need to set forth the requirements for, if it's an exempt employee versus a non-exempt, for them to make sure that they record their hours properly when they are telecommuting. It should include the requirements like that maintenance of OSHA requirements for their home office. It should mention that they need to have and be able to come into the office as needed for meetings, and also be available on a daily basis to have a teleconference with their manager or supervisor. It should also help employees understand ahead of time whether they're going to be eligible to telecommute and what your requirements are. And as I said, it's going to help support your decision of who can and cannot telecommute.